Hey guys, just wanted to update you on some things that went on in the Faculty Senate this month. We had a meeting on February 10th. Our next meeting will be March 16th from 2 to 4 in the Darcy Great Room. We hope to see you there. Everyone is always welcome at Senate meetings, and it's a very interesting process, so feel free to join us. It was a long meeting, so I'll try to keep my comments brief. Of course, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email me. I'm happy to bring them up or address them. The first thing that we talked about was committee reports, and UFAC was up first. And there were 3 amendments that were considered. The first thing was the annual faculty report was revised. Right now, the process is that we turn in our annual faculty reports in a Word doc. They are shifting that process to Google Form, or at least that was the consideration. That form will make it easy to track and upload accreditation data, and it'll be in a lot more standardized format. It will also give the person who submitted it a receipt and a copy of the submission. There was a lot of feedback on this topic. Right now we turn in our reports in a Word doc, and then we do a separate portfolio through a separate process. The comment was made that it would be nice if we could reduce that double workload on faculty if we streamline that process a little bit. So that issue was tabled, motion was tabled, so that the committee can continue to investigate what other options are available. Maybe fix two problems here instead of just one. Next thing that we looked at was the faculty qualification policy. Basically, HLC requires that we have a specific policy outlining faculty qualifications, which we do, and it was amended to include things like MFA as a terminal degree, reducing the minimum of years of experience for adjuncts from 8 to 3, and so on and so forth. That was passed with no problems. The last one was a motion to amend Appendix C of the bylaws, which is basically the calendar dates for promotion and tenure. The dates for people applying for promotion and tenure, the actual applicant dates, those will stay the same. So if you're thinking about applying, May 1st is when you have to notify the dean of your intent to apply for promotion, and then May 1st, just to make sure I said the right date, and then September 1st is the date that the portfolio itself is due. Dates later in the process changed, but those 2 dates stayed the same, so that was passed. The next committee that was up was UAC, and there were a few motions that were considered there and passed. One was the assessment plan, then the revised grade appeal process, incomplete grade policy, and restructuring the undergraduate catalog. That last one was to make gen eds a little bit more obvious to advisors. They're going to have, gen eds are going to have its own sort of header in the catalog. That way it will be very clear what courses are available there. So that's very helpful. One comment that was made here, athletics let us know that at their January report, the presentation that they made, that it was stated that only 50% of faculty actually provided feedback on athletes. That information is really important to retention. So if you get that email, please log in and go ahead and provide that feedback. It's very, very helpful. Next up was UGAC. There were 2 motions there. One was to change the 4+1 title to a bachelor's to master's degree title. Basically, that policy reflects more of a standard wording, and that was passed with no problem. The next one was a prior graduate study and admission policy, which also passed. The gist of that was that anybody that comes in with previous completed coursework has to have a GPA of 3.0 for full admission. One comment that was added was to add that that was out of a 4.0 scale, so that correction was made and that amendment was passed. The last topic that UGAC addressed was the Wiley contract, which was not renewed by the university. We are going to be working with a different marketing firm instead, and there's going to be details on how that process is going to be phased out over the next several years. When a student enters under Wiley, they kind of stay with Wiley throughout their 4 years here, so the university is going to be working on the process and details on how to make sure that they're still taken care of and what we're going to be doing moving forward. Next up was UFBRC. The report stands, but there were several questions, most of them centered on the department chair compensation proposal. The first question with regard to that proposal was, are we considering job descriptions? The answer that the committee chair gave was that they do understand that a bunch of committees are working on job descriptions, and that they know that there's a timeline because faculty contracts come out on May 1st, so they're definitely aware of that. Next question was, are the departments shaking out as they're meant to? Meaning, do the larger departments fall into the higher pay category? The answer was that the algorithm does address a number of full-time students, full-time faculty, adjuncts, program managers. It was a very impressive mathematical formula, so it does look like they were working hard to take into account all the different things that would influence that number. The next question was, when that algorithm is finalized, will it be considered at the college level? And it sounded like that they were very open to any feedback that they might get. The last question moved on from talking about the department chair compensation proposal to the current situation with the budget itself. And basically the question was, is there a document that we can reference when our constituents ask what happened, how did it happen, what are we going to do going forward? That was received very well. Chris Sint actually interjected at this point and said that he would be happy to share that information with us so that we can share it with our constituents, and that he would bring it up at the next UFBRC meeting and then disseminate that information. So that was great to hear. Then UTAC was up. There was no report. They haven't met yet. But there were a couple questions. One was regarding the paper supply and our move to be more digital. Nursing brought up that they have already used their total paper supply, that they'd like to go more digital, but Wi-Fi in their building is pretty spotty. They mentioned that they've written it up a couple times and it's been tested and cleared a couple times, but they still can't use it. The answer was, please continue to write it up. If you're experiencing issues and they're not resolved, they will be addressed, so please write that stuff up. And then the second question was regarding the technology budget requests and how they were handled. Does it go through UTAC? And the answer there is no, it goes through the business office. The next committee was University Professional Status Committee. They've been hard at work trying to outline the new tenure and promotion process. It's a new committee. They're meeting for their first times, and they know that the timeline is short, that anybody that is considering or up for promotion or tenure this year obviously needs this information. They're very aware that they're meeting all the time, so trust in that. And they know the information needs to get out there quickly. So what they're working on is a flow chart and also a promotion and tenure checklist. So they are hard at work at that. Another question that was asked was, this is a transitional year. How is that going to be handled? Should there be external reviewers? The answer was they did discuss that, but it was decided that an external letter of support was probably the best way to handle it, and that that would be something that the submitter turned in with their portfolio, and then it would be considered as a part of their portfolio. So if you have any questions about that, definitely let me know. Then we moved on to the Board of Trustees committee reports. And first up was Academic Affairs. The report stands. Chris Sint answered several questions there. First question that came up was the FY23 budget projects $2 million less than our current budget. Where are those cuts coming from? And the answer centered on fewer positions and not replacing people as they leave and less overload, so economizing efficiencies. But he did say that it does assume that raises will occur, so that was good to hear. The next question was about graduation, the graduation ceremony at the Albuquerque campus. It was canceled. What's the future of that campus? The answer was the event's a very expensive event, and so that was why it was eliminated. It is part of next year's budget, but there's a lot of conversation around it, and they aren't quite sure what the future of that campus is going to be, so decisions have to be made with that regard. The next question was about celebration of scholarship. It was stated that the number of posters has been capped, and there are awards, but they were obtained by outside sponsors. There was just some concern expressed over that, and the answer was Chris did say that he has addressed the impact of that and other operational cuts on both students and faculty to the Board of Trustees, so those types of concerns are being communicated at the highest level. Next question was, what's the plan for the future? What role can faculty play in the decision-making process? And the answer there was that faculty senators always have a voice, of course, so if constituents have issues, certainly bring them to the Senate so that we can continue to communicate that up. Another question, a follow-up question, was asked about class sizes in the provost reports being referenced as 16 and asked if that was a cost-saving effort. And the answer there is that that Chris has data that indicates that there's a big gap between Lewis and other institutions regarding class sizes, so we need to close that gap to improve our financial efficiencies. So a couple comments were made there. Next question was kind of along those same lines, had to do with the proposal to reduce D's, F's, and W's. Of course, the concern there is if a student earns those grades, we don't want to sort of lower our standards just to impact retention. And the comment that was made was that isn't the direction that they're going. What they mean is what things can we provide students that are getting D's, F's, or W's to reduce those? So what benefits can we provide them? What things can we help them with? Kind of moving towards more of an athletic reporting style framework. So that we can identify students that are having trouble quicker and provide them with resources. So students that do better in classes obviously will stay at the university, so our retention will really increase. So that sounded very helpful. Student services, UPRAC, and athletics report all stand. Next was the provost report, and Chris updated us on the Board of Trustees meeting. He basically said that they met, approved several bylaws changes and a couple new programs, so that was great to hear. He also said that the promotion and tenure packages were presented and approved, so congrats to everybody who was promoted. That is phenomenal news. Next thing that he said was the next Board of Trustees meeting will be about revenue projections, so they're going to be discussing that. Additionally, the FY21 budget will be approved in the coming couple months, so that is on the horizon as well. A couple things that he wanted to talk about specifically were course scheduling, assigning courses, course minimums and maximums. All of those things are being evaluated with a big focus specifically on the schedule itself. He stated that something that we really need to be careful about is not scheduling classes out of habit and routine. And one of the pieces of data that he gave us was that we tend to have large schedules, then eliminate courses, specifically 300 courses about a semester, which is about 13%. At his previous institution, he said that he'd be in trouble if there were more than 2% of classes scheduled. So we need to forecast more effectively. He'd rather us schedule less classes and then add them. Obviously, the optics on that are better for the students than scheduling more classes and canceling them. So he's going to give the deans very clear limits and see what we can do moving forward. The final topic that he talked about was holds in degree works. So retention is obviously a big deal, and getting students signed up for classes certainly keeps them here. The business office will lift holds for 24 hours so that students can get registered, but that conversation has to happen at the business office. So if you notice that your advisee has a hold in degree works and they can't resolve it in time to register, please send them to the business office because they will get that hold lifted so that they can register. So keep that in mind as advising is coming up. Old business, none. New business, there was a question that nursing had regarding the accreditation review for their graduate program. Something that was brought up during that accreditation was that they couldn't find faculty job descriptions, responsibilities with regard to service and scholarship. But basically that service and scholarship aren't part of their faculty load. So it was brought up that UFAC might want to think about how they define or could redefine load, which sounded beneficial as well. One last reminder, the last Senate meeting is March 16th. Everybody's welcome, 2 to 4 in the Darcy Great Room. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, and thank you very much.